Excuse me, losing my voice all day. A woman may lend her neighbor who is suspect in regard to this seventh year a sifter, a sieve, a handmill, or an oven, but she may not sift or grind with her. May- um, the wife of a chaver may lend to the wife of an amaretz a sifter or a sieve, and she may sift and grind or refine with her. But once she has poured water, she may not touch with her. He may touch with her, for one may not aid transgressors. But all of these things were said solely for the sake of peace. And one may encourage non Jews in the seventh year, but not Jews, and one may greet them for the sake of peace. There are three territories in regard to the seventh year. All that which the ascendants from Babylon occupied of Eretz Israel as far as Kiziv may not be eaten or cultivated, and all that the ascendants from Egypt occupied from Kiziv as far as the river and until Amana may be eaten but not cultivated, and from the river and Amana inward it may be eaten and cultivated. In Syria, one may attend to the detached, but not to the attached. One may thresh, winnow, tread, and bind, but not harvest, nor gather grapes, nor pick olives. But Akiva laid down a general rule: the like of whatsoever is permitted in Eretz Israel may be done in Syria. Okay.
Okay. Um, fine. Mishna Gimel, B'Tsalem she'yardu aleihim geshamim v'tzimku. Okay, so here we're talking about 60 onions. They completely ripened, and but he left them in the ground
Mhm.
because he just wanted them to keep better in the ground. And then what happened is it rained and they sprouted again. So now you've got a mixture. You've got a question: are these considered 6th-year produce still, or have they now become 7th-year?
Mhm.
Okay. If the leaves were dark, right? So it means shachorin literally is black, but I think we're not talking about literally black leaves. We're just saying that they're dark green, which
Right.
shows that they're a strong growth. Asurin, then they're considered to be shmita. Then it's now become shmita produce. Horiku, however, if the leaves are still well, if they're like a pale green or yellow sort of color, then these are not considered a growth of the 7th year. It's just an outshoot of the onion itself. It's not considered a new growth, and therefore it's it's still sort of 6th-year produce. Do you mind turning on your camera? I'd like to see if you're following me or not.
Oh no, I was sleeping.
Thanks.
Sorry. I didn't.
Okay.
I'm just reading what it says here. They're also because having grown in the Shemitah year, because they're dark green or black, the consumption entails the observance of the Shemitah year produce sanctity. The color proves that they grew in the seventh year.
Yes.
But this was saying, okay, all right, I made a mistake in what I read. Okay, which is not unusual.
Okay.
Good. Okay.
Um, So there are different opinions in the Rishonim about the exact subject. So the Rash and the Rav Mibatanira say that we're talking about attached onions that ripened in the 6th year, but he left them in the ground also for the 7th year. Okay, and the color of the color of the leaves comes to show whether these are things that have grown further in the Shemitah year or not. Okay, but according to Rambam, we're talking here about onions that he did harvest in the
Mhm.
6th year, but he then buried them again in the ground, and so they okay, but never mind. He even left them on top of the ground, and the rain came on them, and they started to sprout. Okay, so the Mishnah is telling you the same thing, that that now if they sprouted even above the ground with these leaves, with these dark leaves, then they're considered Shemitah produce. Um, so that's just talking about the leaves themselves. In either case, the onions themselves remain 6th-year produce because the actual bulb itself remains that its status hasn't changed. We're just talking about the what's the status of the leaves
Uh-huh.
that come out. Okay.
I always thought the top was always just those scallions that come up on top. I don't remember seeing leaves or anything. Doesn't mean I haven't followed onions so much. So I don't know.
Hmm.
Uh,
I mean, the onion is the bulb, and then it'll grow. It sends up a green shoot up in the middle. and
scallions. I call them
yeah.
scallions.
I think it may be. I think scallions maybe scallions are a species of onion, but I'm not sure if they actually have if they're the same species as the onions that we usually use. So
Okay. All right.
anyway, um, Rabbi Chanina ben Antigonus Omer, Im yacholin litalesh be'alin shelahen. He says the criterion is not the color, but the strength. If you could pick up these onions by the leaves, sorry, then they are considered. Then the leaves are considered seventh year produce. Ukeneged kain. Okay, sorry. But obviously the corresponding thing is that if they would break off, if you try to pick it up by the leaves, then they're considered part of the onion and the sixth year produce. Okay. Then Keneged Kain Motzei Sheviis Mutarin. It seems that this last sentence is actually a consensus opinion. It's not actually Rabbi Chanina ben Antigonus. And it could be that it's just him, or it could be that this is a general thing. But basically, the same principle is that whatever grew in the seventh year. So let's say you had onions that grew in the seventh year, behete, let's say that sprouted before Rosh Hashanah, and they grew in the seventh year. So they were hefker onions of Shemitah, and then they sprouted again leaves in the eighth year. So now the same corresponding thing is going to be that if they are dark green, then they're considered eighth year or first year produce, and therefore the owner is allowed to take them. But if they're still weak, then they're still considered part of the Shemitah onion. So okay. Mishna Daled Me'emasai Mutar Adam Nikach Yarak B'Motzei Sheviis. Now comes the end of the Shemitah year, and a person goes into the shuk and he wants to know, well, can I buy these tomatoes? Because I'm not sure if the person who's selling them is selling Shemitah produce over here, or if he's selling onion tomatoes that grew in the eighth year. So says the Mishnah, Mishi Yaseh Ki Yotzebo. Once you've had enough time that onion that's let's say we're talking about tomatoes. Once you've had enough time since Rosh Hashanah that new tomatoes could grow. And then you can assume that anything else in the shuk is part of the new produce. Okay. Asa habakir. If you're in an area where if there is an area in Eretz Israel where tomatoes have started to ripen, hutar ha'afil, then even in an area where the tomatoes haven't yet started to ripen, the tomatoes are mutar in the shuk, because you can presume that they were shipped in from a place where they were mutar. Rabbi hitir likach yarak b'motzei shvius miyad. So Rabbi Yehuda Nasi came and said that like the day after Rosh Hashanah, you're allowed to go into the shuk and buy the vegetables. And he says, everyone's like, what? How can you say that? Isn't it obvious then that the fruit is from Shemitah produce? And so his argument is that people have imported, and you can presume that these are imports.
There's an interesting commentary about Rebbe and buying the vegetables. You must. Oh, you don't have the art scroll. It must be there anyway.
You have an art scroll there?
This is the art. No, this is the Kati. What am I talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. Um, in the commentary, it talks about buying vegetables. Rebbe permitted to buy vegetables immediately after the seventh year. In a similar context, Baraisa in the Yerushalmi Talmud states Rebbe permitted the bet Shean in regard to seventh year and Maestris. Rebbe permitted Kesaria, bet Gorvin. Rebbe permitted Kafar Tzemech, all of which lay beyond the limits of the I can't get the word out. I can't believe it. It's so annoying to me.
I'm trying to find it in the Kahati how far down the Kahati is it? Oh, there we go. Kfar Tzemach and all these places that are outside the area that the Ole Babel conquered. So Rabbi permitted likach Iraq b'motzei shvius miyad, and everyone used to melizin. They would argue with him or criticize him for it. and he said to them, "Come, let's have a let's argue about this." It says, "V'kites nachash hanachoshes," and this is I think it was talking about Melech Yoshaphat, or was it Melech? One of the few righteous kings that we had came and destroyed the copper snake that Moshe made. Remember?
Yes.
Okay. Melech Chizkiyahu. It was Melech Chizkiyahu who did this. מפני שעשו לעבודה זרה. וכי לא עמד צדיק ממשה ועד חזקיהו להעבירו. And it was in no other tzaddik since Moshe who could until Chizkiyahu to destroy this avodah zarah. Ela osa atar hiniach lo Hakadosh Baruch Hu lis ater ba. Hakadosh Baruch Hu set it up that he could be the one who would grab the mitzvah. ואנחנו האתר הזאת הניח הקדוש ברוך הוא לנו להסעתר בה. So Hashem left it for me to make this bold ruling over here. Okay.
That was an interesting commentary.
Yeah. Okay. Mishnah Hey, Ein motzi in shemen streifa or peiros sheviis mehaaretz lechutz laaretz. Okay. So shemen truma that became tameh. So truma oil became tameh. It's called shemen streifa because you can't eat it, and the only thing that the Kohen can do with this is he can burn it. But when he burns it, he's allowed to benefit from it. Right? So he can put it into his lamp and burn it like that. And that's permitted use for the Kohen to use the shemen streifa. Okay, but even though it's considered it's possible in the form of truma, nonetheless you're not allowed to take it out from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz. Okay, and certainly any other truma is not allowed to be taken out from Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so and the other thing he said is Peiros Sheviis. The same thing goes for the fruit of Shemitah. Fruit of Shemitah is not allowed to be taken out of Eretz Yisrael, and this is one of Ashley Blaker's favorite lines. You know the comedian Ashley Blaker?
No.
He said he's a British Jewish comedian, from guy. He does these hilarious routines. He said he was working at one stage. He was working at the BBC, and it was during the Shemitah year, and one of his so he's in the UK at the BBC offices, and one of his colleagues says, "I'm going to Marks and Spencer to go and buy some fresh some stuff. Anyone want something?" And he says, "Yeah, I'd like some cucumbers, please." He likes cucumbers, whatever. And then he suddenly thought, "Oh, hold on a second. He knows in the Shemitah year, Israel exports cucumbers, and they're not allowed to because it's Shemitah produce, not allowed to go into Chutz La'aretz and whatever." And he calls out, and as the guy's leaving, he just calls out across the office, "Just make sure the cucumbers aren't from Israel." He said his status in the BBC offices just shot up, like his popularity.
That's funny. That's very. What's his name?
Ashley Blaker.
Blaker. I have to check him out. All right.
Yeah, he's got a few nice little clips on YouTube if you want to find him. He's very funny.
Someone my son-in-law showed me. You probably know it. I don't remember his name. He has long payas. He's a really firm guy and all that, but he's a comedian and he does all these.
Yoili.
Yeah, that's right.
Yoili.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has a name for what he calls the pandemic. I forget what it is, but it's very
Yeah, no, I've seen him a couple of times.
very
But he's not as funny as Ashley Blaker. Yeah. Anyway, so we said Ein Matzin Stream Streifel Peiros Sheviis Me'haaretz Lechutz La'aretz. So you can't take these things out. Amar Rabbi Shimon Shamati Befeirush. I have a Masorah. Right? I have a Masorah, a clear Masorah. Shemotzin Lesuria Ve'ein Motzin Lechutz La'aretz. Says that you can take that Surya is not like Chutz La'aretz in this respect, and it's mutter to take their Shemen Streifa and Peiros Sheviis. However, the halacha does not follow Rabbi Shimon. Okay.
Let's see what it says. Okay.
Gimel Ches.
Right. No, we okay. My mistake. I thought we started. Maybe I was wrong. We
Did
started
I
on
did I get
Vav Gimel today, right?
so today we started on but Vav Gimel is the new one. That's right.
Oh, right.
Okay, so now we're going back to Gimel Ches.
Right. No, I thought you went one more than we. That was my mistake, as usual. Okay. Ah. Um. Dollar. You said what? You say dollar
Gimel
cess?
Ches.
Okay. Why? Oh, because my tissue fell out. I know you guys probably say I gotta get rid of these tissues. You know. Gimel test. One who builds a wall between his own and the public domain may dig down to the rock. What shall he do with the earth? He heaps it up into the public domain and then restores it to order. So says Reb Yeshua. Reb Akiva says, just as one may not cause damage to the public domain, so also may one not restore it to its order. What shall he do with the earth? He heaps it up in his field in the manner of those who take out manure. Likewise, if one digs a well or a trench or a cave. At first they said a man may gather wood and stones and herbs from his own, just as he may gather from his neighbors, the large ones. When the number of transgressions increased, they decreed that one should gather from the other, not as a favor, nor needless to say, stipulating the
Wait,
allocation.
hold on a second. I'm lost. I'm trying to catch it because I'm following you in Hebrew and I'm not seeing the same translation. Which Mishnah are you reading?
I'm reading Dalet Aleph.
Okay, that's too far. Did you go from Gimel Ches with the stairs?
No, but I will now. Okay. One may, one may now build steps by the ravines in the 6th year, after the rains have ceased, because this would be preparing them for the 7th year. But he may build them in the 7th year after the rains have ceased, because this would be preparing them for the 8th year. He may not block them with earth, but he may make an embankment, and any stone that he can take when stretching out his hand may be removed. Shoulder stones may be taken from anywhere, and a contractor may bring them from anywhere, which are shoulder stones, any that cannot be taken with one hand. So says Rev Meir. Rev Yossi says, as the name implies, those who are carried two or three on a shoulder. One who builds a wall, um, one who builds a wall between his own and the public domain may dig down to the rock. What shall he do with the earth? He heaps it up in the public domain and then restores it to order. So says Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Akiva says, just as one may not cause damage to the public domain, so also may one not destroy it to order. What shall he do with the earth? He heaps it up in his field in the manner of those who take out manure. Likewise, if one digs a well, a trench, or a cave. Okay.
That's
Sorry.
it. Okay, no worries.
All right.
Kilayim based Dalet.
Okay. If it was sown and he decided to plant it, he may not say, I will plant and then I will turn over, but he must turn over and then plant. If it is planted and he decided to sow it, he may not say, I will sow and then I will uproot, but he must uproot and then sow. If he so wishes, he may cut down to less than 1/100th, one handbreadth, and sow and then uproot. If his field was sown with caraway or arum, he must not sow on top of them, for they only produce after 3 years. If some aftergrowth of its Isitis sprang up among grain, and likewise if several species sprang up in the area of a threshing floor, or if among fenugreek diverse plants have grown up, he is not required to weed them out. If he weeded out or cut them out, he is told uproot all except one species. If one wishes to lay out his field in beds, each serving a different species, Beis Shammai says 3 opening furrows, but Beis Hillel says the width of a Sharon yoke. And the words of these are close to the words of those. Okay. Okay, next.
Zavim Hayod.
One who touches a sheretz or semen, or one who touches that which contracted tumor from a corpse, or one who touches a mitzvah during the days of his counting, or purification water of an amount insufficient for sprinkling, or an animal carcass, or the contaminated saddle of a zav contaminates one and invalidates one. This is the rule. Anything that touches one of the avosatuma listed in the Torah contaminates one and invalidates one, except for a person. Once it separates, it also contaminates one and invalidates one. Let's shut this for a second. Okay. A man who has discharged semen is like one who has touched a sheretz, and a man who has contaminated with a nida is like one who has touched a corpse. However, a man who is contaminated with a nida has the stringency over one who has touched a corpse, for he contaminates a couch with a seat and a light form of tuma, enabling them to contaminate food and beverages. These invalidate teruma, those who eat food, which is a rishon tuma, and one who eats food, which is a sheni tuma, and one who drinks liquids that are tame, one whose head and the greater part of his body enter into drawn water, and a tahor person in the event that three logam of drawn water fall upon his head, and the greater part of his body, and a scroll of scripture, and unrinsed hands, and a tevel yom, and food and utensils that became contaminated by tame liquids.
Ajna lach maseches zavim
We're going on to
tulyum.
okay for tomorrow. Kalim,
Kelim chaf vav gimel.
Yosef Gimel.
Chaf vav gimel.
The mid of a branch gatherers is tahor. A zone and a niper are tame. Work sleeves are tame, but a headbands are tahor. All gloves are tahor except though for those of the branch gatherers because it is used to contain the sumac berry. However, if it tore, it cannot hold most of the sumac berry. It is tahor. A sandal, one of whose side flaps tore off and when repaired it, is tame midras. If the second side flap tears off and when repaired it, the sandal is tahor from midras tuma, but is tame due to contact with the midras. If one did not manage to repair the first side flap before the second one tore off, the sandal is tahor. If its heel piece tore off and the toe piece was removed, or if it split in two, it is tahor. Solyam that tore in any way is tahor. Regarding a shoe that tore cannot be contained most of the foot, it is tahor. Regarding a shoe that is on the last, Reb Eliezer rules tahor, but the sages rule it tameh. Excuse me. All tied water skins are tahor except the one of the Arabs. Reb Meir says those tied with a temporary binding are tahor, and those tied with a permanent binding are tameh. Reb Yossi says all tied water skins are tahor. Can't get rid of this thing.
Mm.
Yeah, the following hides can become tameh with midras tuma. A hide that one intended to use as a mat, a hide that serves as an apron, a hide that serves as a bedspread, a donkey driver's hide, a flax worker's hide, a porter's hide, a doctor's hide, a cradle hide, a hide to cover the heart of a child, the hide of a pillow, and the hide of a mattress are all susceptible to midras tuma. Regarding a comb maker's hide and a comb maker's what is it? A comb maker's hide and a comb maker's hide. Reb Elliot says they are susceptible to midras tuma, but the Chachamim say they are susceptible to corpse tuma.
Okay.
Right? Okay. Well, that was it, right? That was it.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was it. Okay. Shavuos. Gimel Yud Aleph.
The vain oath applies to both men and women, non-relatives and relatives, qualified persons and disqualified persons, in court and out of court, but only by his own mouth. One is liable for his willful transgression to a penalty of lashes, but for its inadvertent transgression one is exempt. For both this and that, one who has endured by others is liable. How so? If one said, I have not eaten today, or I have not put on tefillin today, and the other said, I adore you, and he replied, Amen, he is liable. The oath of testimony applies to men, but not to women, to non-relatives, but not to relatives, and to those qualified, but not to those disqualified, and applies only to those fit to fit to testify both in court and out of court. By his own mouth, if one is adored by others, they are not liable unless they deny it in court. These are the words of Rav Meir. But the Kachamim say, whether he swears by his own mouth or whether he is adored by others, they are not liable unless they deny it in court. These are liable for the willful transgression of the oath, as well as for its inadvertent transgression, coupled with the willful transgressions of the testimony. But they are not liable for its inadvertent transgression. Not now that what are they liable for? For the willing transgression of the oath, A variable sin offering.
Yeah, variable sin offering. That's it. That's so that's what you chayav for the for shgaga. Sorry, I'll show you some imzadon ha'edus. Uma chayvin al zidon hashavua. So if you deliberately make a shavua about that you don't know edus, then you have to bring the korban oliver your ed. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Gimel Ches.
Rosh Hashanah Gimel Ches. Yeah.
And it came to pass when Moses raised his hand that Israel prevailed. Was it Moses' hand that won the battle or lost the battle? Rather, the Torah teaches you, as long as Israel looked heavenward and subjected their heart to their Father in heaven, they would prevail. But when they did not, they would fall. In a similar manner, you learn, make a fiery serpent and set it on a pole, and it shall become to pass that whoever is bitten will look at it and live. Was it the serpent that killed or the serpent that gave life? Rather,
Anyway, we just read about the serpent now in the commentary on Sheviis. Yeah.
rather when Israel looked heavenward and subjected their heart to their Father in heaven, they were healed. But when they did not, they perished. A deaf person, an imbecile, and a minor cannot discharge the obligation of the many. This is the general rule. Whoever is not obligated himself in a matter cannot discharge the obligation of the many. When the Rosh Hashanah festival fell on Shabbos, they would blow the shofar in the temple, but not in the province. After the temple was destroyed, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai instituted the day that they blow the shofar in every place where there is a bet din. Rabbi Elazar said Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai instituted this regulation for Yavna only, and they said to him Yavna and any other place where there is a bet din.
Right, but of course nowadays, if Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbos, we don't blow shofar anyway.
We had that this year, right? Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that's right. This last year we had Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos.
In this matter too, Yerushalayim was superior to Yavner, in that any town which could see Yerushalayim and could hear, and is near to Yerushalayim can come to Yerushalayim on the Sabbath. And they blow the shofar on Shabbos, whereas in Yavner they blew only before the Bet Din. Okay.
Okay, that's us for the day.
Shut that recording for a second if you want more.